Another reason why I left religion, church, Christianity, and fundamentalism is because the church ignores queer mental health. Now, I'm going to use my own experiences I've learned about from talking with thousands of survivors of extreme high-control religions. Religious parents' views on educating their children about suicide and queer issues are varied and can be influenced by a complex interplay of factors. Religious teachings and interpretations. Many conservative interpretations of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, etc., view same-sex behavior as sinful. This can lead to parents avoiding conversations about non-heterosexual identities or individuals who don't align with their religious beliefs, and because parents want to teach their children biblical values. Some religious parents might fear that discussing non-heterosexual topics could be seen as condoning or encouraging such identities, which they believe go against their faith. Religious beliefs can also influence views on suicide, mental health, depression, etc., with some interpretations viewing it as a sin or violation of God's will. While some studies suggest a protective effect of religious belief against suicide, the empirical evidence is inconsistent. Now, in another video, we're going to talk about how the church denies mental health and psychology, but we're just going to focus on how kids are impacted and suffer due to their parents' intolerance or homophobic beliefs. Sometimes it's because of a fear and lack of understanding. Parents might struggle with how to reconcile their faith with LGBTQ+ acceptance. This leads them to avoid or reject or sometimes erase these discussions entirely, potentially out of fear of causing harm or confusion for their kids. Some parents might hold a misguided belief that acknowledging LGBTQ+ identities or discussing suicide and depression could increase the likelihood of children identifying as LGBTQ or face depressive or depression in general. This is not true. Talking about something, whether it's sex ed, LGBTQ+, or depression, doesn't make anyone more likely to do or experience any of these things. You can Google that. There's a lack of accurate information or understanding about orientation, gender identity, and medical or mental health. This can contribute to parents avoiding or having very unfactual conversations. Social and cultural pressures. Parents might face pressure from their religious communities to adhere to specific doctrines or stances on these issues, leading them to prioritize religious conformity over open discussion. Concerns about their children being influenced by views perceived as contrary to their religious teachings can be motivated avoidance against these topics. Sometimes parents have the desire to protect their children. While seemingly counterintuitive, some parents might believe that they are protecting their children from difficult or potentially confusing information. By avoiding these discussions, however, this can have the opposite effect, reinforcing isolation and increasing vulnerability, particularly for LGBTQ+ youth or people who need the information. People like me who were straight and cis, but grew up having a very bigoted view of people who didn't adhere to heteronormative values. Now, there are important considerations. Diversity within religious groups. It's crucial to recognize that religious parents represent a wide range of beliefs and practices, and not all religious parents avoid these conversations. However, there isn't much consistency among these high-control religious groups. Support and acceptance. Studies consistently show that family and social support are crucial for the mental health, well-being, to reduce depression or any other activity. Have open-door communications, creating a safe space for open dialogue and expressing unconditional love and acceptance for children, regardless of their orientation or gender identity, can foster positive relationships and emotional well-being. In summary, a combination of religious beliefs, fear, lack of understanding, and social pressures can contribute to how religious parents feel reluctance to discuss suicide and queer issues with their children. However, it is important to remember that not all religious parents share these views. There is a growing movement within many faith communities and denominations to embrace inclusivity and support the LGBTQ+ individuals. So, when it comes about when religious kids are at a certain age, my parents did not talk about mental health, sex education, prophylaxis. There was no safe sex talk, no consent, no bodily autonomy. It was all about the godly family values, and you wait till marriage. There was no talk about mental health. Depression and suicide might as well not have existed because it was never discussed. And growing up in Alaska, being emotionally, socially, and psychologically isolated was a tinderbox of the worst scenario possible. When kids don't hear positive conversations about sensitive or adult topics, they can internally process these kind of things as social taboo. They can have negative feelings. They can have prejudice, anger, fear. If parents don't have positive, uplifting discussions about sex, depression, body dysphoria, gender identity, gender roles, all the above really, and etc. Kids will internalize the silence as condemnation. I did not grow up with healthy discussions on sex, gender identity, or racism. I internalized the negative silence as shame. Silence is almost as bad as having a negative conversation about something. And the silence can be so telling about an environment. The problem with conservative values is there's little room for anything else. What if somebody, the way they were born, doesn't fit into those roles? What if their passion isn't for those roles? What if their passion is to be single, career-oriented, child-free? Religious groups don't want kids to be educated about controversial topics because it would shake their